Welcome back to Social Currency. Today we're breaking down the grocery store that became a status event, Meadow Lane. On its grand opening week, they had a line wrapped around Tribeca like it was Supreme in 2017. And for many New Yorkers, the store opening was a moment that they had been waiting for over a year and a half. Bougie New Yorkers have been following it across TikTok and social media, just waiting for their very own version of a mini Erewhon to open up in their city. In today's world of consumables, a grocery store is so much more than a place where you just pick up your pantry staples. For those with discretionary income and a social media following, it's one of the most visible pieces of social currency that we have today. I'm Sammi Cohen, and this is Social Currency, a podcast that unpacks the stories that are shaping business, culture, and the intersection of the two. So let's go back to the very first week. For the people who work there, it also became a PR disaster. We're talking mislabeled chili that almost triggered an allergic reaction, raw chicken nuggets, many people sharing online snarky comments about the $750 caviar and the $75 matcha, and that infamous mouse video. All of these items were well documented across receipts, TikToks, and press, so there was lots of fodder online for people to cling on to. And at the end of this episode, I'm going to explain what Meadow Lane's existence and its initial chaos tells us about food as a status symbol, and why this moment proves that we are in what the New York Times is calling peak status grocery. All right, so we need to talk about the man behind Meadow Lane, Sammy Nussdorf, because understanding who he is will put a lot of pieces into place. Sammy is 28, a born and raised Upper East Sider, and he comes from tremendous wealth. His grandparents started this company called Quality King in Queens, and his father is currently the CEO of the company. According to Bloomberg, the company distributes medicines and other healthcare products to different types of stores and channels. And even if that doesn't really mean much to you, his family was number 136 on the Forbes richest families list back in 2014. So they're, of course, billionaires. Sammy himself has worked in venture capital, and according to him, he wanted to take a leap to pursue something more meaningful. He goes by the handle Brokeback Contessa on TikTok, which is really amazing. And on his own TikTok, he says that he left VC because making money and lots of it did not fulfill me. And he also said that he had the ultimate luxury and privilege to pursue something that he was passionate about. And listen, when someone says, I had the privilege to do what I'm passionate about, and they're doing something like Meadow Lane, you know that we're not dealing with a founder who is bootstrapping out of a studio apartment in Bushwick. Now, before I even knew a single thing about this founder, I knew that there was probably a lot of family money involved. There were no angel investors, no venture checks, no silent partners, which in 2025 is basically unheard of for this type of brick and mortar. Forbes even calls this out, saying that he's capitalizing it entirely on his own, and that liquidity is crucial because Manhattan real estate and the overhead are really no joke. Really, we are dealing with someone who can afford to build the grocery store that he wants to see in the world. So he did. And for over a year, Sammy was building in public. Of course, that is what most founders do, or what most founders should be doing now. He was super active on his TikTok page, and he documented every single step: the build out, the menu development, the curation, the interiors, etc. to an audience of more than now 140,000 TikTok followers, and his page has millions of likes. If I were advising him on the best pre-launch strategy, homeboy understood the assignment perfectly. He created a fandom before the store even opened. People felt like they had really been part of the journey for over a year, and they were foaming at the mouth for the doors to finally open. So by the time that Meadow Lane actually opened, people lined up around the block in Tribeca because they felt like they had watched this store get built brick by brick on their For You page. Of course, for the store location, he chose Tribeca, which surpassed the Upper East Side as the wealthiest zip code in New York City, making it arguably the ideal neighborhood for a store where $16 chicken nuggets make sense. Now that you understand who built Meadow Lane, let's get into what makes this place different. In a nutshell, this is really a nepo baby of grocery stores, and it's clear that this store is catering to the 1%. And the concept itself is about taking what Erewhon has become incredibly well known for and creating their own version in New York City. Meadow Lane isn't a full-service grocery store. It's more of a grab-and-go, high-end prepared foods market. Sammi says that the prepared foods are the bulk of the business, which makes sense because the prepared food sections are the major moneymakers for Erewhon, along with the very famous smoothies. Now, the Meadow Lane prepared food section includes quite a variety. There's the turkey chili, soups, roasted chicken, chopped salads, and much more. And the New York Times even mentions that the items like the LA chopped salad and the Osaka beef bowl sold out within hours on their opening day. The beverage offering is kind of what you would expect at a very nice cafe. There's Le Cabre coffee, Montauk matcha, organic juices, smoothies, and much more. And the aesthetics are very curated, as you'd also expect. It feels like a spa in a hotel lobby had a baby. The packaged goods aisle is small but intentional. There's lots of trending snack brands, minimalist packaging, clean ingredients language, and the whole vibe is very elevated. And the hot, cold, and frozen cases were custom built in Italy, which is not something that a normal grocery store is doing. And the location is crucial, but Sammi picked the best possible neighborhood for Meadow Lane. This is the exact type of neighborhood that turns a high-end grocery store into a neighborhood meetup spot for all of the rich Tribeca moms after their Pilates classes. So Meadow Lane isn't trying to be Whole Foods or even a local gourmet market. It is building a luxury experience that just happens to be centered around food. So now let's get into the part of the story that made Meadow Lane explode across TikTok. It was all about the opening week chaos. On opening day, the New York Times reported lines wrapped around multiple blocks. The store sold out of prepared food within hours, and Sammi had to close early. He offered stickers to people who were still in line, promising them priority entry the next day. And the demand was overwhelming. And then there were two main incidents that led to the PR coverage that turned more negative. First was the raw chicken nugget scandal. Multiple creators posted videos showing that their chicken nuggets were visibly undercooked and pink in the middle. One woman who spent $132 at the store opened the nuggets and found them raw inside. Her video went very viral, and suddenly all of TikTok was talking about the raw nuggets. And to his credit, Sammi refunded her and replaced her nuggets right away. But the damage was done. The narrative had shifted. There was then this mislabeling of a product. Another customer with a dairy allergy purchased the turkey chili that appeared to contain cheese, even though the label did not list dairy. And she began reacting immediately. She was sneezing and feeling congested, and she posted her experience online. Sammi apologized, refunded her, and invited her back to choose free items. But food safety errors, especially combined with the raw chicken nuggets of it all, amplified concerns very quickly. And Sammi recorded multiple videos addressing these concerns on his TikTok. In these videos, he said that people were waiting for him to fail and accused some commenters of being trolls and talked about being attacked online since the moment he began documenting the store. At times, he took accountability, and at other times, he appeared visibly frustrated. Now let's talk about the most predictable comparison, Meadow Lane versus Erewhon. I've already mentioned that a few times, and there are obvious similarities between the two. Both stores are curated, aesthetic, expensive, and heavily influencer adjacent. Both emphasize clean ingredients, wellness-forward narratives, and the idea that food is part of your identity. And both have strong cult-like followings, but there are also clear differences. Erewhon is now a multi-location institution with decades of operational maturity. Meadow Lane is brand new and ran out of food on day one. But Erewhon has legendary items, the smoothies, the hot bar that anchor its brand, and Meadow Lane's supposed hero items ended up being some of the most controversial parts of the launch. So will Meadow Lane ever get to Erewhon status? According to Sammi, he's not looking to expand the same way that Erewhon has, but we'll see if that ends up being the case. Now let's get into what Meadow Lane really tells us about the culture and status signaling of food. First, food really is the new status symbol. The New York Times did this piece on Meadow Lane and says that the city is approaching peak status grocery, where people use supermarket bags and prepared foods to signal wealth, wellness, and trend alignment. And even on the other side of the grocery luxury ecosystem, you have people who are proudly using the Trader Joe's totes and mini totes to signal their own cultural values with the rest of the world. Food is a status signifier more than it's ever been. And second, people want wellness shortcuts. No one wants to cook nowadays, but everyone wants to feel healthy. Prepared foods let people outsource that responsibility while still feeling virtuous because they're eating something healthy. We saw the popularity of this with Erewhon, and the shift to to prepared foods also highlights the convenience factor that has become so ingrained in our lives and expectations of how we consume food. Third, grocery stores have become entertainment. People did not line up around the block because they desperately needed chicken salad. They lined up because they want to be part of the cultural moment. Food is one of the last affordable luxuries where people can feel okay treating themselves to a $150 grocery run versus a $4,000 designer bag. And finally, building in public like Sammi is doing is a double-edged sword. Sammi used TikTok to build hype and loyalty. Those same followers became critics when things went wrong. In 2025, your customers aren't just your customers. They're your PR team, your paparazzi, your investigators, and sometimes they can become your villains. So here's my final take. Meadow Lane is a high-end grocery store that is mirroring back the values of the people who shop there. It reflects how people think about food, identity, money, and belonging. People aren't just buying groceries, they're buying a narrative. They're buying proximity and taste in every sense of the word. And if there's one thing that has become abundantly clear in its opening week, food is one of the most sought after forms of social currency today. And right now, nothing seems to have more social currency amongst well-to-do New Yorkers than being seen with that blue checkered Meadow Lane tote. And that is a wrap for today's episode. Please share this episode with a friend who would love to hear about Meadow Lane, and make sure to follow along or subscribe to get next week's deep dive at the intersection of business and culture. See you next time. Thank you so much for listening to today's episode of Social Currency. I've been wanting to launch this show for so long. I can't tell you how excited I am to do this and how thrilled I am that you're actually here listening. It means the world to me. If you liked what you heard today, please rate and review the podcast because it massively helps to support the work I do to bring the show to life. And if you want to keep up with the hottest business lore in real time, follow me on Instagram at Sammi Cohen Talks and subscribe to my newsletter, Social Currency, which is linked in the show notes. Social Currency is a production of Social Currency Media and Money News Network. The podcast is hosted and executive produced by me, Sammi Cohen. Social Currency is produced by the Money News Network team. See you next time.